The morning of March 17, 1943, found Admiral Wilhelm Canaris in his office at Abwehr headquarters in Berlin. A folder landed hard across his mahogany desk, the impact so violent that coffee sloshed from his porcelain cup and splattered across intelligence documents. Papers scattered everywhere, reports that would have sealed the fate of anyone caught with them had the Gestapo discovered them first. It couldn't be true. The Americans were spreading lies through their turned agents, Canaris thought. Beyond the tall windows, the Landwehr Canal stretched out below, and he found himself staring at it. 24 years earlier, that same canal had swallowed the body of Rosa Luxemburg. Now, as he gripped the papers in his shaking hands, Canaris held something that threatened not just Nazi propaganda, but the entire framework of German victory itself. The reports were consistent and alarming. Intercepted communications and intelligence from agents working in Mexico City all pointed to the same staggering claim. The Ford Motor Company's Willow Run plant was rolling out one B-24 Liberator bomber every single hour. One massive aircraft built every hour. Each plane contained 1.5 million individual parts, held together by 450,000 rivets, with 30,000 separate components assembled into an 18-ton machine. And Germany could barely produce a simple military vehicle in that same time frame. Major Friedrich Wilhelm Heinz stood before Canaris's desk at rigid attention, having verified these numbers multiple times. The figures remained unchanged no matter how many times they checked. Neither man realized that this moment would unleash the most catastrophic intelligence failure in the history of modern warfare. Germany's military intelligence apparatus had become systematically blind to a fundamental truth about American industrial power. They couldn't grasp it, refused to believe it, and failed to convince Nazi leadership of the mathematical reality unfolding before them. The very foundation of German calculations about winning this war was crumbling beneath false assumptions about what America could actually produce. This blindness had taken root 2 years earlier. In 1941, Luftwaffe General Karl Koller had placed reports on Hermann Göring's desk. The military attaché in Washington, General Friedrich von Bertischer, claimed that American aircraft production was approaching 2,000 planes each month. Göring's reaction was immediate and dismissive. He laughed. The Americans could build refrigerators and razors, he declared. Military aircraft? Impossible. They were bluffing, Göring told Hitler in December 1941 at Wolf Lair, just 4 days after Pearl Harbor. American democracy made them weak. Their diversity made them inefficient. The corruption within their ranks made them incapable of such feats. By 1943, German intelligence networks across the Americas were drowning in reports that contradicted every assumption the Nazi regime held dear. The information came from disparate sources: Mexican industrialists sympathetic to Germany, Spanish diplomats in Washington, Swedish businessmen who traveled through Detroit, intercepted letters from American workers sent to relatives in neutral countries. Every source said the identical thing: Ford's Willow Run operation was producing more heavy bombers than all of Germany's aircraft factories put together. Oberstleutnant Nikolaus Ritter commanded the Abwehr's Air Intelligence Section. He had spent 3 weeks analyzing the mounting data. Before the war, Ritter had served as a Lufthansa pilot and lived in America for a decade. During the 1920s, his Manhattan apartment overlooked construction of the Chrysler Building. He had watched Americans erect the world's tallest structure in less than 2 years. He understood American industrial capacity in ways most German officers simply could not. Ritter approached Canaris with his conclusions. His voice was steady, but his words carried the weight of a death sentence. If these numbers are accurate, and I believe they are, then Germany has already lost this war. Now it's simply mathematics and time working against us. The intelligence was flowing in through increasingly dangerous channels. Georg Nicholas ran the Abwehr's primary operation in Mexico City, cultivating sources among American businessmen who traveled between Detroit and Mexico's oil fields. These men spoke freely about what they witnessed, unaware that German agents were transcribing every conversation over dinner and drinks. On February 3, 1943, an American oil executive named Harold Morrison attended a reception hosted by the German-Mexican Commerce Association in Mexico City. After several tequilas, Morrison began describing his recent visit to the Willow Run facility. Ford had arranged it to show potential investors what they could accomplish. Wolfgang Blom, a German agent posing as an Argentine leather merchant, listened to every word and memorized it all. "What I saw there defies any attempt at description," Morrison had said, gesturing animatedly. "The assembly line stretches over a mile. The building is so enormous that clouds actually form inside it. Sometimes it rains inside the factory itself. They employ 42,000 workers. Thousands of them are women, Negro women, building the most complicated machine ever created." Morrison had pulled out a pencil and sketched roughly on a napkin. Each bomber has 2 bomb bays, holding 4,000 pounds of explosives each. 4 engines power each aircraft, generating 1,200 horsepower per engine. Ford doesn't build entire planes in one spot. They construct them in sections, sub-assemblies Ford calls them, that flow together like rivers merging into the ocean. Wing sections arrive from one direction, fuselages from another, tail assemblies from yet another. They converge at precise points along the production line. Blom asked casually whether such complexity didn't cause frequent breakdowns and delays. Morrison had laughed in response. Consolidated Aircraft made that same argument. They said Ford couldn't build planes the way they built automobiles. But Ford disassembled the entire bomber into 60,000 separate operations. Each worker repeats the same task endlessly. A woman making breakfast for her children yesterday now installs hydraulic lines in the tail section. They train workers in days, not months. Some of the most detailed intelligence came through Spanish channels. Colonel José Ungria served as Spanish military attaché in Washington. He maintained close ties with American aircraft manufacturers while secretly selling information to Germany in exchange for tungsten shipments vital to Spain. In March 1943, Ungria attended a reception at the Argentine embassy where he encountered Charles Sorensen, Ford's chief of production and the mastermind behind Willow Run. Sorensen, believing he was speaking with a neutral nation's representative who might purchase aircraft after the war, spoke openly about the plant's capabilities. "When I first visited Consolidated's San Diego facility in 1940, they were building B-24s outside in open air, each one different from the last, taking 180,000 man-hours per aircraft," Sorensen explained. "I knew we could do better." Ungria pressed for specifics, claiming professional curiosity as a military engineer. Sorensen, proud of his creation, elaborated freely. "I spent one night in my hotel room sketching out the entire production system. We would manufacture bombers exactly as we build automobiles, not having workers gather around a stationary aircraft, but by moving each aircraft past workers who remained in fixed positions. Each worker would perform specific operations repeatedly, achieving excellence through sheer repetition." Ungria asked about managing such a complex workforce. Sorensen explained that they had constructed an apprentice school that trained 8,000 workers weekly. Women made up 40% of their workforce, and he emphasized that women actually performed better at detailed assembly work. They had smaller hands for tight spaces and greater patience for repetitive tasks. Negro workers operated sophisticated machinery. Teenage boys managed supply logistics. Democracy, Sorensen said, meant using every available human resource. Through Swedish, Argentine, Japanese, and Turkish intelligence channels, German operatives received consistent reports verifying Willow Run's production capacity. Swedish engineer Erik Lundberg visited the plant in March 1943 and reported back that the facility operated with an efficiency that European factories couldn't match. They employed 1,600 specialized machine tools, many designed for single operations alone. The capital investment was staggering, perhaps $200 million just for tooling. A coded message from Japanese commander Toshikazu Omai, intercepted by German intelligence and forwarded to Tokyo, provided independent verification of the stunning figures. "This single factory produces more aircraft monthly than our entire aviation industry," the message stated. By April 1943, German intelligence had assembled comprehensive data from 17 independent sources, all confirming the production rates. The statistics were breathtaking. At peak production, Willow Run alone was manufacturing 650 B-24s monthly. Total American B-24 production exceeded 1,400 monthly. Desperate for concrete proof that could convince Berlin, Canaris authorized Operation Pastorius, the infiltration of saboteurs into the United States by submarine. George John Dash led one of two four-man teams. He had lived in America for 20 years before returning to Germany in 1939. Canaris's classified orders were specific. Dash was to gather intelligence on aircraft production before attempting any sabotage operations. In the early morning darkness of June 13, 1942, Dash's team came ashore at Amagansett on Long Island after departing U-202 just after midnight. Within days, tormented by the implications of his assignment and what he already knew about American industrial capacity, Dash surrendered to the FBI. During interrogation, his confession stunned his American questioners. Canaris himself told me that Berlin doesn't believe your production figures, Dash revealed. They think Willow Run is propaganda. He wanted photographs, employee counts, shipping records, anything that would force Göring to accept reality. FBI Special Agent Charles Lanman questioned him in disbelief. They don't believe we're producing a bomber every hour. Dash gave a bitter laugh. Agent Lanman, I lived here. I've seen your automobile factories. I tried explaining to them that if Ford could produce a car every minute before the war, they could certainly produce a bomber every hour during wartime. They accused me of defeatism. On April 20, 1943, Hitler's 54th birthday, Canaris personally delivered the intelligence to Göring at Karinhal, the Reichsmarschall's magnificent hunting estate north of Berlin. The meeting would become infamous among German intelligence officers for Göring's absolute refusal to accept what was plainly true. Canaris had brought photographs, intercepted documents, and reports from dozens of sources. He spread everything across Göring's massive oak table like cards that spelled certain defeat. Herr Reichsmarschall, Canaris began carefully, we have confirmation from 17 independent sources. The Ford Willow Run plant produces one B-24 Liberator every hour at maximum production. They've sustained this rate consistently since January. Göring, who weighed over 280 pounds by this stage of the war, picked up one of the photographs showing the assembly line vanishing into the distance. He studied it with contempt. Canaris, he said with disdain, do you take me for a fool? These are obviously wooden mock-ups, propaganda props. The Americans want us to believe they manufacture aircraft like sausages. This Willow Run plant probably produces 50 bombers monthly at most. Canaris produced another document, an intercepted railroad manifest showing aluminum shipments. Herr Reichsmarschall, they consume 16 million pounds of aluminum monthly at this single facility. That exceeds our entire monthly production. Göring laughed harshly. Then where does this aluminum originate? From their Negro workers? From their female riveters? Canaris, you've been fooled by American propaganda. A week later, Canaris received a summons to Wolf Lair to brief Hitler personally. The conference included General Jodl and General Keitel and Propaganda Minister Joseph Goebbels. Hitler, studying maps of the Eastern Front, where the Wehrmacht was preparing Operation Citadel, the Battle of Kursk, listened with obvious impatience as Canaris presented his intelligence. Mein Führer, Canaris said, fully aware he was risking his life. If Americans are producing 424 bombers monthly, plus equivalent numbers of B-17s, plus their fighter production, plus British aircraft, the aerial bombardment of the Reich will soon surpass our defensive capacity. Hitler's response was characteristically dismissive. Admiral, Americans excel at mass production of simple goods, automobiles, refrigerators, but a bomber is not a car. It demands precision, skill, dedication. We spent 6 years preparing for war. That they achieved this in 16 months is impossible. General Jodl examined the figures and began calculating, even accepting only 1/4 of these numbers as accurate. The figures are false, Hitler interrupted. The Americans entered the war in December 1941. Building this miraculous factory and achieving such production in that time frame defies logic. Canaris possessed something that no one else in that room had seen. Through American contacts in Switzerland, he had obtained film footage of Willow Run in actual operation. Spanish diplomatic pouches had smuggled the film into Berlin. A 5-minute sequence showed the assembly line running at full capacity. In a locked room at Abwehr headquarters, Canaris and his deputy Hans Oester watched the film. The camera traveled the entire mile-long assembly line. B-24s in every stage of construction moved steadily past workers. Men and women, black and white workers, performed their tasks with mechanical precision. A visible clock confirmed the pace. "My God," Oster whispered. "It's true." Canaris lit the film with his cigarette lighter and watched it burn completely. "We cannot show this to them," he said quietly. "They would accuse us of fabricating footage or call us traitors." In November 1943, German intelligence acquired aerial photographs of Willow Run taken by a Spanish diplomat. Photo analysts spent weeks examining the images closely. Their findings were unambiguous. Parking lots surrounding the facility contained approximately 12,000 automobiles, indicating 3 distinct shift operations running simultaneously. There they stood, row after row at the airfield nearby. 47 finished B-24s awaited their journey onward. Through skylights cutting into the factory roof, the endless assembly line stretched before the observer's eyes. The sheer volume matched every report that had reached Berlin. Everything was exactly as the intelligence claimed it would be. The rail sidings told their own story. Dozens of freight cars sat loaded with materials, constantly delivering supplies to feed the hungry production machine. Hauptmann Werner Zahn captured it all on film. The photographic evidence lined up perfectly with what human intelligence had reported. The production numbers weren't exaggerated, they were real. The assessment was clear. Germany needed to reconsider its entire strategic position immediately. When shown the photographs, Göring dismissed them outright. The Americans had simply created an elaborate hoax, he insisted. They'd built scale models and used clever photographic tricks, nothing more than deception. But one man knew better. Dr. Albert Speer, Hitler's armaments minister and the only senior Nazi leader who truly grasped industrial production, secretly obtained copies of the American intelligence. His private diary entry from May 15, 1943, discovered after the war's end, revealed the weight crushing down on him. If the Willow Run figures hold even a fraction of truth, annihilation awaits us, not mere defeat. He wrote with quiet desperation, "We manufacture more bombers in 30 days than Germany produces in 12 months. Yet I cannot voice this reality. To speak such words would mean my execution." Another analyst examined the situation with cold precision. Dr. Otto Ohlendorf, leading the SD's Economic Analysis Division and trained in economics, studied the American industrial data methodically. His December 1943 report to Himmler delivered findings without mercy. Ford Motor Company had built 1.1 million vehicles annually before the war. Now that capacity had shifted entirely toward bomber manufacturing. The mathematics were inescapable. By June 1944, the Americans alone would have constructed sufficient B-24s to rain down destruction equal to their entire 1940 bombing campaign over London every single day. When Canaris received the intelligence projections for 1944 on Christmas Eve 1943, the numbers read like a death sentence. The Americans claimed they would produce 18,000 B-24 Liberators, 12,000 B-17 Flying Fortresses, 1,000 B-29 Superfortresses, 40,000 fighter aircraft. The total reached 86,000 warplanes. Hitler's reaction proved dismissive and swift. The Americans announced they would manufacture more aircraft in 1 year than all the nations on Earth have produced throughout history combined. Absurd. Impossible. A lie. By February 1944, suspicions of defeatism and treason ended Canaris's career. They removed him from power. Walter Schellenberg took his place, a true Nazi believer who would never risk contradicting Hitler or Göring with uncomfortable facts. Yet reality refused to cooperate with ideology forever. February 20, 1944, arrived with devastating force. Operation Argument unfolded. The American 8th Air Force sent over 1,000 heavy bombers streaming toward German aircraft factories. In just 6 days, they poured down more tonnage than the entire Luftwaffe had dropped on Britain during the whole Blitz campaign. Luftwaffe pilot Adolf Gehland stared upward in shock. He approached Göring with urgent news. "Here, Reichsmarschall, I counted more than 800 bombers in a single formation alone. These aren't photographs or models. These are real aircraft dropping real bombs." 4 months later, on June 6, 1944, the moment of revelation came. More than 11,000 Allied aircraft blackened the sky above France. The Luftwaffe managed to scramble fewer than 300 fighters in response. Field Marshal Hugo Sperl sent an anguished message racing back to Berlin. "The enemy controls the air absolutely. Our position is hopeless." The truth stung because it confirmed what everyone already knew. The intelligence assessments had been accurate all along. Germany hadn't been deceived by American cunning, they had deceived themselves. April 1944 marked the moment Willow Run reached its absolute peak. That single month became legendary. Employees working 2 separate 9-hour shifts, 6 days each week, produced 453 complete aircraft within 468 working hours. One finished B-24 Liberator rolled off the line every 63 minutes. The facility employed 42,331 workers. Among them, 11,000 were women, representing 26% of the entire workforce. 3,800 African Americans made up 9%. 1,200 disabled workers constituted 3%. This workforce composition would have shattered everything Nazi ideology proclaimed as truth. The races deemed inferior, the sex declared weaker, the disabled viewed as burdens. They outproduced the German master race by orders of magnitude. The mathematics mocked every racial theory Berlin had built its world view upon. After the conflict ended, surviving German intelligence officers revealed the catastrophic extent of their failure to act. Walter Schellenberg testified at Nuremberg with candor born from defeat. By early 1943, we possessed complete knowledge of American production capacity. Every professional officer understood the numbers were genuine. Yet reporting such truths meant risking execution for defeatism. Hans Bernd Gisevius wrote in his post-war memoirs with bitter recognition, "Our intelligence wasn't inadequate, we drowned in it." The true tragedy lay in our leaders' refusal to accept what contradicted their racial mythology. The officers who dared voice these uncomfortable truths suffered terribly. Admiral Wilhelm Canaris faced execution on April 9, 1945, at Flossenburg concentration camp. Hans Oester died the same day at the same place. Alexis von Hoeni was executed in October 1944 for his role in the July 20th plot. Hans Bernd Gisevius escaped to Switzerland and lived through the war's end. Only he survived to tell the story. After Germany's surrender, the United States Strategic Bombing Survey confirmed everything the German intelligence services had reported. Between 1942 and 1945, Willow Run produced 8,685 B-24s. Monthly production peaked at 650 aircraft. The facility maintained this hourly output for extended periods. Remarkably, the cost per aircraft plummeted from $238,000 down to $137,000. When interrogators asked Albert Speer why Germany had rejected such clear intelligence about American production, his answer revealed the ideological prison confining their thinking. To believe that Ford could manufacture a bomber every hour required accepting that our entire philosophical framework was fundamentally wrong. It meant acknowledging that democracy possessed strength rather than weakness, that racial mixing generated power instead of corruption, that women could perform industrial work. Most impossible of all, it demanded we face the reality that we had unleashed a conflict we could never possibly win. Who possessed the courage to deliver such a message to Hitler? The woman who inspired the Rosie the Riveter legend worked that production line herself. Rose Wilder Monroe operated a rivet gun on the B-24 assembly. She and thousands of women just like her had never set foot in a factory before Pearl Harbor changed everything. We understood we were building something vital, Monroe reflected in a 1984 interview. Every single rivet we installed was helping to finish this war. We sometimes worked double shifts, sleeping in our cars between rounds. We had brothers and husbands and the men we loved flying those very planes we were building. The refusal to accept Willow Run intelligence produced catastrophic ripples. Fighter production continued when it should have stopped. Germany kept manufacturing bombers into late 1944, wasting resources that could have mounted defenses. Strategic operations were planned to face hundreds of bombers rather than thousands. Diplomatic opportunities were squandered because leadership refused to acknowledge certain defeat was approaching. Peace overtures arrived too late because they had never believed the intelligence warning them of inevitable collapse. German economists examining captured documents grasped the true dimensions of what Willow Run represented. The factory cost $200 million to build. Germany's entire aircraft industry investment from 1940 through 1945 totaled $400 million in equivalent value. Willow Run occupied 3.5 million square feet of floor space. All German aircraft factories combined covered 8 million square feet, just double the single American facility. Willow Run consumed 2.5 million kilowatts monthly. The Americans had constructed one factory that devoured more resources than entire German cities combined. When the final accounting came, the numbers spoke with merciless clarity. Willow Run produced 8,685 B-24s from the total American production of 18,188. 12,731 B-17s came from American factories. Between 1940 and 1945, America manufactured 300,377 aircraft total. Germany produced 94,700. The United States built 3.2 times more aircraft than Germany, while simultaneously fighting a two-ocean war on opposite sides of the world. Military historians regard the German intelligence failure regarding American production as one of history's most consequential. It wasn't a collection failure. German agents gathered precise, detailed intelligence. The failure was acceptance. Leadership rejected intelligence that contradicted their worldview. Dr. Gerhard Weinberg concluded that German intelligence officers had accurately assessed American production capacity by early 1943. Had their leadership believed and acted on this intelligence, Germany might have sought peace 2 years earlier, potentially saving millions of lives. The story illuminates lessons that echo across generations. Cognitive bias can reject accurate intelligence when it contradicts fundamental beliefs. Ideology can override mathematical certainty. Systems that punish unwelcome truth receive comfortable lies instead. Underestimating opponents breeds catastrophic miscalculation. At the 1985 dedication of the Yankee Air Museum at Willow Run, history arranged a remarkable meeting. Rose Wilder Monroe, a genuine Rosie the Riveter, sat facing former Luftwaffe pilot Hans Rudel. Rudel posed a simple question. How did you build so many aircraft so quickly? Monroe's answer carried the weight of lived experience. We just showed up for work every day and did our job, honey. Nothing complicated. We clocked in, built bombers, clocked out. That's what democracy really is. Free people simply doing their best work. Rudel's response came slowly, shaped by decades of reflection. We were taught that democracy made you weak. We were told your diversity created inefficiency. They fed us lies, and those lies ended up killing millions of people. In May 1945, American intelligence officers searching through the ruins of Berlin discovered one final German intelligence report. It was dated April 20, 1945, Hitler's last birthday. The report read like a final testimony from men trying desperately to speak truth to power they could no longer reach. Willow Run production confirmed, "We reported these facts 2 years ago. You chose not to believe them." Germany falls not from inadequate intelligence, but from lacking the wisdom to trust intelligence that contradicts what we desperately wish were true. The report concluded with words meant for the future. Let coming generations understand. Reality does not yield to ideology. Mathematics will not surrender to mythology. Truth abandoned becomes tragedy. The report was never delivered. By then, Hitler sat in his bunker. The 1,000-year Reich had only days remaining. Thousands of B-24s built at Willow Run descended from above, delivering the very argument German intelligence had tried making 2 years before. That argument, finally heard by all of Germany, came delivered by bomb. The historical verdict emerged unambiguous. German intelligence had been excellent. German intelligence acceptance had been catastrophic. In that fundamental failure to believe uncomfortable truths lies a warning reverberating across all nations and all times. Reality will not conform to what you believe. Those who deny reality in favor of ideology will ultimately be destroyed by that reality. Willow Run manufactured far more than bombers. It produced proof that democracy functions, that diversity strengthens, that freedom creates abundance. German spies observed it all and counted every plane. German leaders accepted none of what their observers reported. That disbelief, that refusal to see what lay plain before them, toppled the Third Reich just as surely as any bomb ever could.